typical Mercedes Squeak. It's on the left front wheel. Mostly the left front.
Alright, let's get this started. First thing you're going to do is remove your wheels, of course. Remove the 8mm belly pan bolts. Remove the wheel sensor. It's held on there by 8mm Allen head bolt. Now on top of the steering knuckle, you're going to see a little metal bracket that holds the plastic cover in place. Just use a pair of pliers and pry up on the tab there to loosen it. Now you can remove your speed sensor and put it somewhere where it's out of the way. Now you can unbolting your components. So right here I'm using a 6mm Allen in the center of it to hold the stud from moving, and then use a 21mm wrench. And then same thing on the ball joint. You're not going to need anything to hold the ball joint because it's pretty pressed on there. So go ahead and take that nut off as well. Now you're going to need a ball joint separator tool like this. You can use a pickle fork or anything else. Some people use pneumatic ones. They work. This is brand new, so I figured I'd use it. And it seemed much simpler too. Another thing too is when you screw this, it's going to pop, so be ready for a loud sound when it pops off of here. Unbolt and remove your torque strut. The bolt is has a E20 Torx head on it, so you'll need a socket for that and a 21mm wrench for the nut.
All right. So now that we got it apart, here's the ball joint. Listen. That's what's making all that racket.
Now grab your ball joint removal and installer tool and select the proper adapter to remove the ball joint. This is one of the culprits. This is the noisy one on the left side. Now I like to clean off the contact areas. What I want to show you here is the difference between the universal ball joint installation tool that works on American cars and light trucks versus the Mercedes specific ball joint installation tool. So the difference is this. On the American one, the collar that fits the ball joint correctly, as you can see, it kind of rocks on the top of it. So you got to be careful on getting this straight Otherwise, sometimes you'll install the ball joint into the control arm a little sideways, and then you'd have to adjust the collar and then, you know, straighten it out basically. And on the Mercedes side, when you look at their tool, it has a nice little ridge in here, and it has a much more positive fit on their ball joint, so it doesn't rock as much. It's very, very sturdy. So if you're going to be just working on your Mercedes, and if that's all you own, for $60, I think this is a good purchase that you can buy off eBay. But if you're already in the automotive field and this is what you have, the universal set, this will work as well. Just be careful on getting it center and when you press the ball joint up in there.
Now to install the ball joint, you just install it with nothing on it. You don't put no lube of any kind. It goes in there dry. So select your proper adapter. I'm using the Mercedes specific one, and it's just a lot easier to work with. And then tighten it down till you can see where it just bottoms out, and it'll get hard to turn, so you'll know. Now you can start putting it together. Just push the ball joint up onto the arm and grab the nut that goes on it and screw it on there finger tight. Now you're going to need an Allen head for the top of the ball joint stud. And these ball joints were actually larger, the nut, so I ended up with a 22 millimeter wrench to install. And when you're putting this on there, don't tighten it all the way because you're going to have to torque it first and then move it a few degrees, which I'll show you here. So mark the nut and then torque it down to 37 foot-pounds. And once you've done that, then you can go ahead and, like I said, mark it. Excuse me. This is the time you mark it. Now turn it the 60 degrees, I think it is. Yep. Now install your torque strut. You can reuse your old hardware. I ended up getting replacement bolts and stuff, but you don't have to. And do the same thing here. Put the nut on the torque strut. And same thing, you're going to hold it with the Allen and turn it with the, in this case that I'm using, 22 millimeter. And just like the ball joint, torque it down to 37 foot-pounds. And then go grab a felt pen or a marker of some kind and mark the nut as a reference point, and then go ahead and turn it the additional 60 degrees. You can eyeball this stuff. It's not rocket science. They do sell a tool that is precise, but this works just as well. Now for your torque strut nut, put some Loctite on this nut here. This is the one that goes to the frame. And don't tighten it all the way. Just go snug, because you're going to have to compress the suspension system first before you tighten it down to its proper specification. So here I'm just going to load the suspension. What you can do in your case, if you don't have a hoist like I'm using, you can get some wooden blocks, for example, put the wheel back on and lower it down to compress the suspension, and then you can do this process. So here you're going to go a little tighter. It's going to be 59 foot-pounds under load. And then you're going to go an additional 120 degrees after you mark it. That's what I'm doing here. Now I made a mistake here by putting the cover back on first, but it's not a problem. Now on your bolt for the speed sensor, put some Loctite on that as well. And I can still sneak in the speed sensor even though I put the cover on first. You just move the cover out of the way. Now go ahead and torque it down to 18 foot-pounds. Now what I'm showing you here is the proper routing of that speed sensor wire. Just keep it away from the brake line. You don't want it wrapped around it in any way, because remember, when the wheel's turning, you don't want this, like I said, to get wrapped around it. Now do the same thing on the other side. I'm just going to fly by this on the other side here. Now once you're finished with both sides, go ahead and install your underneath belly pans back. Remember, these are 8mm bolts. Reinstall your front wheels. Now torque your wheel lugs to 96 foot-pounds, and you are finished with this job. Go ahead and please subscribe to my channel if you like what you see. I'll try and make more videos here shortly. Everyone have a good day and good luck.